Good afternoon and welcome to the Personal Computer Show. Today is February the 12th, 2020. A shout out to the military men and women serving our country. We thank you for your services. I'm Hank Key and my colleague is Joe King. Do you know who has your personal data? Do you know how Facebook, Google, Amazon, and other tech companies are using your personal data? Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm, streaming on the Internet. Podcasts of the programs available on prn.fm, on the Internet, as well as pcradioshow.org. To listen to the live program on the telephone each Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 641-793-7091. You can leave us a message with your question or comment at hank@pcradioshow.org. Big news hit the wire in the last 2 days. Judge approves of $26 billion merger of T-Mobile and Sprint. A U.S. district judge ruled in favor of Sprint's $26 billion deal to merge with T-Mobile. The ruling clears one of the final hurdles for the deal, which still can't close yet until California Public Utilities Commission approves the transaction. The ruling clears one of the final hurdles for the deal, which still can't close until the California Public Utilities Commission approves the transaction. Yesterday's ruling also culminates a years-long courtship between Sprint and T-Mobile, which have made multiple attempts over the last 2 years to merge, only to abandon their plans fearing regulatory scrutiny. Attorney generals from New York, California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Oregon, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and the District of Columbia originally brought the lawsuit to block the deal following the approval from the Justice Department and the Federal Communications Commission, that's the FCC, and the states had argued that combining the number 3 and number 4 U.S. carriers would limit competition and result in higher prices for consumers. The companies had contended their merger would help them compete against top players AT&T and Verizon and advance efforts to build a nationwide 5G network. In his decision filed Tuesday, Judge Victor Morero wrote the following. The resulting stalemate leaves the court lacking sufficiently impartial and objective ground on which to rely in basing a sound forecast of the likely competitive effects of a merger. The judge laid out 3 points on which the court rejected the state's objections to the merger. First, he said, they failed to convince the court that the merged party would pursue anti-competitive behavior that soon after the merger, directly or indirectly, will yield higher prices or lower quality for wireless telecommunication services. Second, the court rejected that Sprint would be able to continue operating effectively as a wireless services competitor without the merger. The court is thus substantially persuaded that Sprint does not have a sustainable long-term competitive strategy and will, in fact, cease to be a truly national mobile network operator. And finally, the court rejected the state's argument that Dish Network would not enter the wireless services market as a viable competitor nor live up to its commitments to build a national wireless network. The deal calls for Dish to step in as a new wireless player based on agreements with the DOC and FCC. The case has seemed to escalate tensions between some of the state attorney generals and the DOJ, who are each pursuing investigation into Google. As noted, should a minority group of states or even one be able to undo the nationwide relief secured by the federal government, it would wreak havoc on parties' ability to merge, on the government's ability to settle cases, and cause real uncertainty in the market for pro-competitive mergers and acquisition. Top executives at T-Mobile and Sprint claim a victory with the judge's ruling. John Laguerre of T-Mobile said, "Now we are finally able to focus on the last steps to get this merger done." T-Mobile and Sprint agreed to certain concessions to the government before the agencies cleared the deal. The companies told the FCC they would deploy a 5G network covering 97% of the U.S. population within 3 years of closing the deal. Sprint also agreed to sell Boost Mobile, Virgin Mobile, and other prepaid phone businesses, as well as some of its wireless spectrum, to Dish for $5 billion before gaining approval from the Justice Department. The FCC chairman, Ajit Pai, said in a statement that he was pleased with the court's ruling and that the merger would help close the digital divide and secure United States leadership in 5G, calling it a big win for American consumers. Dish co-founder and chairman Charlie Ergen said in a statement that the ruling and approvals from the DOJ and FCC accelerates our ability to deploy the nation's first virtualized standalone 5G network and bring 5G to America. If approved by the California Commission, and again, we're still holding our breath, the deal will create a new wireless competitor in Dish, which has tried for years to become a provider, spending billions on airwaves it had stored away. Under a previous deal between Dish and the DOJ and FCC, the company had a deadline this year to build a narrowband Internet of Things network, connecting people and sensors and microprocessors. If the deal clears, Dish will instead focus its effort on building a 5G network covering 20% of the country by June of 2022 and 70% of the U.S. population by June of 2023, with the consequence of facing a $2.2 billion payment to the U.S. Treasury if it fails to live up to its commitment. Laguerre, the T-Mobile CEO, announced last year he would step down from the role and be succeeded by President and COO Mike Sievert. Laguerre had been expected to leave once the company's merger with Sprint was completed. Sprint and T-Mobile had initially said Laguerre would lead the combined company when they announced the intention to merge back in April of 2018. I'm optimistic that if this deal finally does go through, 5G will be accelerated in its installation and implementation. Let's get to work. The feds have found a way of getting around the Fourth Amendment with a workaround. Sidestepping the need to obtain a search warrant, the Department of Homeland Security has reportedly been accessing phone location data belonging to millions of Americans by buying it straight from private marketing firms. The data is drawn from seemingly ordinary phone apps, including mobile games and weather apps, as reported by the Wall Street Journal. Department of Homeland Security uses the data purchased from private marketing companies to generate law enforcement leads and search for undocumented immigrants, according to the Journal, which first broke news of the arrangements on Friday. In a landmark 2018 decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the Fourth Amendment protects cell phone location information. As a result, police are required to obtain a warrant before obtaining location data. But according to the Wall Street Journal, government lawyers have argued that a warrant is not required because the data is already commercially available. The government procurement of location data from private marketing companies for law enforcement purposes was a secret until now. The Journal reports that DHS and agencies under its umbrella, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement, purchased location data as far back as 2017 from a small Virginia-based company called Ventel, Inc. According to the Journal, the data was recently used to track the phones of people suspected of smuggling drugs through a tunnel from Mexico to Arizona. Ventel acknowledged serving government clients on its website, which says its platform merges, categorizes, and interprets disparate location data. The company says it provides global coverage as well as access to historical data. DHS and Ventel did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Neither the names of the marketing firms from which Ventel reportedly purchased the locations data nor the phone apps used to collect the data are named in the Journal's report. A Customer and Border Location official told the Journal that the data is not ingested in bulk and doesn't include cellular phone tower data. The data reportedly points to devices represented by an alphanumeric advertising identifier, but does not include the cell phone owner's name. Claims that location data is anonymized are all but meaningless. Researchers have repeatedly shown the technique of advertising companies employ to anonymize data are faulty and inadequate. Last year, for example, researchers at the Imperial College of London published a study showing that they were able to accurately re-identify 99.98% of Americans in anonymized datasets. And just this month, students at Harvard University revealed they built a tool that links personal identifiable information to anonymized consumer data exposed by data breaches. A staff attorney with the ACLU says that the DHS should not be accessing our location information without a warrant, regardless whether they obtain it by paying or for free. The failure to get a warrant undermines Supreme Court precedent establishing that the government must demonstrate probable cause to a judge before getting some of our most sensitive information, especially our cell phone location history. This is going to get interesting. Free Software Foundation suggests Microsoft to upcycle Windows 7 as open source. The Free Software Foundation, otherwise known as FSF, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded by Richard Stallman back in October of 1985 to support the free software. The Free Software Foundation has kicked off an online campaign calling on Microsoft to make Windows 7 available to all users for free. The Free Software Foundation has recently completed a petition to urge Microsoft to open source Windows 7. Microsoft turned off the free security update with a final fix on January 14th. The foundation says Windows 7's life doesn't have to end. They call on Microsoft to upcycle it instead. The Free Software Foundation ran a campaign calling on Microsoft to make Windows 7 available to all users for free, and they are petitioning Microsoft to undo past wrongs. There is a precedent. Ancient MS-DOS and word code has been opened up, and Calculator app found in the current Windows 10 now is part of GitHub, but an entire relatively recent OS? No, not there. Unfortunately, the FSF couldn't resist sarcasm, saying the killing of the OS had brought to an end its updates as well as 10 years of poisoning education, invading privacy, and threatening user security. Ancient MS-DOS and word code has been opened up, and the Calculator app found in the current Windows 10 now is part of GitHub. But an entire relatively recent OS? No way. There are some problems. Not the least is the licensed components lurking in Windows 7 that would need to be either excised or open source as well. Then there are the bits and pieces that the company would consider valuable secrets, such as large chunks of Windows 7 that are in Windows 10. Then there is the fact that Windows 7 is, well, not actually unsupported. 3 more years of updates are available for those who can pay. With Windows as well, those parts of its license to third parties still accounting for a sizable chunk of Microsoft revenue. You can imagine a very functional and highly compatible free version is not really in the company's best fiscal interest. And let's be honest, who knows what will be lurking in that code? Microsoft was contacted on the off chance that Windows 7 might be showing up on GitHub at some point soon. But Microsoft said they don't comment on rumors and speculation. In any event, if open source is your thing, there are plenty of Linux distributions in a far better state of usefulness than what was around when Windows 7 first launched. And if there is that Windows app you just can't do without, the popular compatibility layer of Wine receive a major version update, replete with over 7,400 tweaks to allow you to inflict more Windows apps on your Pen OS. Still, never say never. If you told us 10 years ago that Microsoft would be about to ship a version of Windows containing the Linux kernel, we might have just had a big laugh. So who knows what else might be coming down the line. Ransomware attacks are crippling cities and businesses. Hackers are locking people out of their networks and demanding big payments to get back in. New data shows just how common and damaging the attacks have become. New Orleans city government crippled. A maritime cargo facility temporarily closed. Hospitals forced to turn away patients. Small business shuttered. The cause in each of these instances, ransomware attacks. In recent years, hackers have taken to locking down entire computer networks and demanding payments to let users back into their systems. The frequency of ransomware attacks, among the scariest and most costly online assaults, have been hard to pinpoint because many victims quietly pay off their attackers without notifying the authorities. Now, in an array of new data provides perhaps the best available picture of the problem. Last year, in 2019, 205,280 organizations submitted files that had been hacked in a ransomware attack, a 41% increase from the year before, according to information provided to the New York Times by a security firm that helps companies hit by ransomware. The average payment to release files spiked to $84,116 in the last quarter of 2019, more than double what it was the previous quarter. According to data from Coveware, another security firm, in the last month of 2019, that jumped to $190,946, with several organizations facing ransom demands in the millions of dollars. Security experts say that even these numbers underestimate the true cost of ransomware attacks, which have disrupted factories and basic infrastructure and forced businesses to shut down. Anything of value that is smart and connected can be compromised and held for ransom. If critical infrastructure systems are held for ransoms, what is our policy going to be for dealing with those? The data from the security companies and the number of recent ransomware incidents show a dramatic escalation for a type of attack that just a few years ago was mostly directed at individuals who had to pay only a few $100s to get their files back. Cities appear to be high on the target list because they are among the only victims who have to report the attacks. In reality, public sector organizations represented only about 10% of all victims last year. Coveware said Barclays and several other banks are still unable to make foreign currency conversions for customers more than a month after Traveler, the company that provides them with cash, was targeted by ransomware. The BBC reported that hackers demanded $6 million. Ransomware attacks have also caused a number of small and medium businesses to shut down altogether. Like the Colorado Timber Line, a printing company with a few hundred employees near Denver, and Brookside ENT and Hearing Services in Battle Creek, Michigan, a 10-person medical office. I was suddenly retired and didn't want to be, said Dr. William Scarf, one of two doctors at Brookside, which closed in April after failing to recover its medical files from hackers who demanded $6,500. American authorities have not released statistics on the broad changes on ransomware attacks, but the FBI noted in its latest warning that the attacks were becoming more targeted, sophisticated, and costly. I cover this for one reason, is because if you think about it, if you did regular backups, you have data good through the night before or the last time you backed up. And if you make arrangements so that either you have spare equipment set up to recover or you have the ability to run elsewhere with a similar configuration. Back in 9/11, when the World Trade Towers were hit, practically all the financial institutions were shut down. They were able to recover within 3, 4, 5 days very quickly because they had backed up all their data to the day before. When you do that, you have the ability to say, I have all my data, you can say medical records, financial data, intact through the day before, and you might be able to recover whatever you had done in processing from the beginning of the day to when the time you had ransomware affect you. Ransomware is effective because they have locked up all your current data and none of your data has been backed up to that point prior to that. When individuals are hit, I could see where they are unable to recover. But government are supposed to have IT personnel who are trained, who are skilled and knowledgeable to set up backup in such a way where they can recover even if ransomware hits. So when ransomware does happen, the question is raised, why haven't you done your backup properly? Why wasn't backup properly implemented? Presenting Benjamin Rockwell with his IT Pro series. What is your plan B?
This is Benjamin Rockwell, and now it's time for my approach on business and technology. This is where I give you the benefit of my experience, 30 years of being an IT professional. Now, this is a topic which I've touched on in the past in a variety of different forms, but I'm going to go at this head on. What is your plan B? That's right. Your plan A is your computers are going to be working just fine. Your plan A is technology is beautiful. Technology is just working out great. And it's all of the different servers are running, all of the workstations, they're all dealing with everything they need to deal with, and everything is hunky-dory. What is your plan B? What is your plan of action should your entire company get hit by ransomware? I know a company that was hit a couple months ago now. They were hit by ransomware, and it was a very ugly situation. What are you going to do if technology goes wrong in your business? What are you going to do if there is a fire in your server room and you lose all of your data? How does an owner prepare for this? How does an IT professional prepare for this? How can we, as just general people, the various workers in a company, prepare for something like this? You should know, if you're an owner of business, you should know that you need to have a disaster recovery plan. You need to have a business continuity plan. If you don't have those, if you don't have either of those, the IT disaster recovery or the overall business continuity plan, if your company burns down, you don't get anything out of this. You're going to lose your shirt. Okay, but that's normally we think of that. I'll tell you, if you have an IT disaster recovery plan and your data is located off-site, okay, so you can access all of your data, including, oh yes, your accounts receivable. See, all of those things that you shipped over the course of the last 3 months, 6 months, you're still owed receipts for those. You're still owed all of the money from all of that. And that you're going to have to recover. You're going to have to get that back. You're going to want it back at least. That may help you recover your entire company. Your business continuity plan. What happens if it's just the server room that's lost? You've got the entire company there, but you just lost all of your data. Well, how do you get your data back? And you should plan this through. You should know every single pitfall that's going to happen. I've done this before. I've done disaster recovery plans. I've done business continuity plans with working with the owners or the primaries within the company and sitting down and saying, we need to do this, and this. And sometimes they look at me and they go, you're kidding. We're going to do all of that. We can plan this now, or when Murphy shows up, that guy, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Yeah, and it gets worse. At the worst possible time, in the worst possible way, yeah, it gets even worse than that. I'm not even going to go there. But when he shows up, when he comes knocking on the door, yeah, everything is going to be a just massive headache. So you plan now. The neat thing is, if you plan, it seems to work out that if you plan all of the different options, all of the different things that you're going to have to do, the problems still come, but the problems become easier. Dealing with everything is a lot easier. If you think about, you're driving down the highway and you think about, what am I going to do if I hit black ice? All right. This is, great for anybody who lives in a cold culture. If you live in like Arizona, maybe you don't have to deal with black ice, but you live in a colder climate, and maybe some additional concern for you. So you hit that black ice. What are you going to do? That's all we're doing as a business. We're planning this out. We're going, this is how we're going to handle every single situation that could happen. And you deal with a lot of the more dire circumstances, because if you deal with the big things, you deal with the really big, huge, massive problems, the smaller problems are frequently covered by that. Okay, all of my servers go down. What am I going to do? I'm going to call this place. I'm going to order the servers. I'm going to pick them up here. It's going to be, an extra 10% because I'm going to want it next day. I'm going to need this many hard drives, this many monitors, this many whatever. All of this different stuff that I'm going to need. And I plan this all on out. If I only have one server fail, I've already planned out if all of the servers fail. So if I only have one server fail, I've planned for that one smaller eventuality versus planning for just the small things, and then the big things really hurt us. So we plan these out. And this is how we go through, and you plan for everything that could go wrong. Bring in somebody from outside. Bring in an outside higher-end IT professional, a higher-end business guy to come along, and you pay them for a day worth of work, and you say, hey, look, I want you to look over these plans. I want you to tell me where I failed. I want you to tell me where I haven't planned ahead. Now, this is for business owners, for business principals, for IT folks. But how can you, as a normal person in a company, how can you help prepare for this? Ask your IT guy, what happens if something goes wrong with that server? What happens if something goes wrong with the network? And do this in a friendly way. You're trying to find out. You're asking them questions. You're challenging them. We should always be challenging our IT guys. We should have them thinking more and more about the real world items instead of the cool techie stuff. Oh, hey, look, I got this brand new server that does this really cool thing. You can rein them in. That's okay. I give you permission. I give you permission to rein me in. But that's just because of who I am. Benjamin Rockwell. Back to you, Hank.
Thank you, Benjamin. Science fiction and modern-day technology are often intertwined. Back in 1965, Lost in Space was an American science fiction television series which originally aired between 1965 and 1968. The series was inspired by the 1812 novel The Swiss Family Robinson. The Robinson family was supposed to set off on a 5-year mission to explore a distant planet, but an act of sabotage by the scheming Dr. Zachary Smith, who managed to get himself trapped aboard the spaceship, leaves them adrift in space for 3 years. The first episode was on September the 15th, 1965, and the final episode was 3 years later, March the 6th, 1968. This was followed by Star Trek. The iconic series Star Trek follows the crew of the starship USS Enterprise as it completes its mission in space in the 23rd century. Captain James T. Kirk, along with half-human, half-Vulcan Science Officer Spock, Ship Dr. Bones McCoy, Ensign Chekhov, Communication Officer Uhuru. The first episode was on September the 8th, 1966, and the final episode was June 3rd, 1969. Of course, there's been many sequels after that in the movies. In the early days of microcomputing, it was the hackers, the techies, and the do-it-yourself assembling computers. It was a very exciting period, but for the average consumer that wanted a computer, well, that had to wait. And the wait was finally over in 1977. The Commodore PET, the PET is an acronym for Personal Electronic Transactor. It was introduced in January of 1977. The Commodore appeared before either the Apple II or the Radio Shack TRS-80. Commodore's first model cost $495, and it included 1 MHz MOS 6502 processor and included either 4 or 8K of memory. The machine had a built-in cassette on the front of the case for data storage. Users could write their own program in BASIC. and was fully functional out the box. The screen of the PET computer was only 9 inches and it had a blue or black display. Users could design simple graphics, do animation, or work out math problems. The PET was popular with schools and for use as a home computer. Apple II was introduced in April of 1977. It was sold complete with a main logic board, switching power supply, keyboard, case, manual, game paddles, and cassette tape containing the game Breakout. I wonder how many of you remember that one. The Apple II, when connected to a color television set, produced brilliant color graphics for the time. Millions of Apple IIs were sold between 1977 and 1993, making it one of the longest-lived lines of personal computers. Apple gave away thousands of Apple IIs to schools, giving a new generation their first access to personal computers. The Apple II started to boom in personal computer sales in the late 1970s and pushed Apple into the lead among personal computer makers. And in the same year, 1977, Star Wars was released on May the 25th, and it was first subtitled Episode 4, A New Hope, and it was based on the 1979 book, The Art of Star Wars. Set in a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars combined old-fashioned science fiction storytelling with cutting-edge special effects. Two characters played a critical role in the 1977 blockbuster hit, and they were C-3PO and my favorite R2-D2. C-3PO served as an ambassador-like robot that is knowledgeable of customs, traditions, and over 6 million languages. C-3PO's companion robot, R2-D2, served as a mechanic, computer interface specialist, and co-pilot for the film's main protagonist, Luke Skywalker. Then later on in the year of 1977, the Atari 2600 was first released in the United States in October of 1977. The Atari 2600 game cartridges, which can be changed in and out to change games, which was a new idea at that time in video games. Before the 2600, people had to buy a different system for each game they wanted to play. In 1977, 9 games were released on cartridges to accompany the launch of the machine, including, I wonder how many remember these, Air Sea Battle, Starship, Street Racer, and 2 Atari published games, both from 1982. E.T. the Extraterrestrial and Pac-Man are frequently blamed for contributing to the video game crash of 1983. Continuing with 1977, Tandy Radio Shack introduced its TRS-80 in August of 1977. Some refer to it as the Treasure 80, others refer to it as Trash 80. The TRS-80 was the first complete, pre-assembled, small computer system on the market. When the TRS-80, a personal computer from Tandy that would be sold via their Radio Shack stores, went on sale August 3, 1977, computers weren't exactly new. In the first month after its release, Tandy Radio Shack's first desktop computer, the TRS-80, sold 10,000 units in that first month. The TRS-80 was priced at $599.95. It included a Z80 microprocessor, video display, 4K bytes of memory, a built-in basic programming language interpreter, cassette storage, and easy-to-understand manuals that assume no prior knowledge on the part of the users. Boy, that's one thing that I've missed, manuals. The TRS-80 proved popular with schools as well as for home use. The TRS-80 line of computers later included color, portable, and handheld versions before being discontinued in the early 1990s. And in August of 1977, well, this is where science fiction no longer became science fiction. From the NASA Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral, Florida, Voyager 2 was launched first on August 20th, and Voyager 1 was launched on a faster, shorter trajectory on September 5th, 1977. Both spacecraft were delivered to space aboard the Titan Centaur expendable rockets. Voyager 2 is a space probe launched by NASA on August 20th to study the outer planets. Part of the Voyager program, it was launched 16 days before its twin Voyager 1 on a trajectory that took longer to reach Jupiter and Saturn but enable further encounters with Uranus and Neptune. 40 years after they left the Earth, the Voyager twin spacecrafts are still chugging along, logging 35,000 miles an hour as they zoom further and further into the cosmos. In an incredible feat of remote engineering, NASA has fixed one of the most intrepid explorers in human history. Voyager 2, currently some 11.8 billion miles from Earth, is back online and resuming its mission to collect scientific data on the solar system and the interstellar space beyond. Last Wednesday evening, NASA's Voyager Twitter account gave out the good news. Voyager 2 is not only stable, but is back at its critical science mission. My twin is back to taking science data, and the team at JPL Jet Propulsion Lab is evaluating the health of the instruments after their brief shutoff. Voyager 2 is a sister craft to Voyager 1. Both have been traveling through the solar system and now probably beyond it for the last more than 4 decades. Together they have transformed our understanding of our stellar neighborhood and are already revealing unprecedented information about the interstellar space beyond the sun's sphere of influence. In a statement, NASA confirmed that Voyager 2 is back in business. It went offline sometime in January. In a statement, NASA confirmed that Voyager 2 is back in business. Mission operators report that Voyager 2 continues to be stable and that communications between the Earth and the spacecraft are good. The spacecraft has resumed taking scientific data, and the science teams are now evaluating the health of the instruments. The fix is no mean feat. It takes 17 hours one way to communicate with Voyager 2 from Earth, which is the furthest away man-made object in space. That means a single piece of information relay takes 34 hours. What happened to Voyager 2? The spacecraft had run into trouble on January the 28th when NASA revealed that it had unexpectedly and for unknown reasons shut down. Well, we all held our breath. As reported at the time, Voyager 2 went black right before it was scheduled for a maneuver in which the spacecraft rotates 360 degrees in order to calibrate one of its instruments on board. But the spacecraft didn't make the move, and as a result, 2 of its systems, both of which consumes a lot of power, was running at the same time. The likeliest problem was that the spacecraft was using up too much of its available power supply, which triggered protection software. The software automatically turns off Voyager 2 science instruments when there is a power overload to save on power. It only has a finite supply after all. NASA hasn't confirmed or denied whether that is what actually happened. Only time will tell whether the agency ever gets an answer to that about what went wrong. But for now, we can all rest assured that Voyager 2's mission is far from over yet. If all goes well, it should have maybe another 5 years of life left, meaning 5 more years of data collection from an area of space we humans have no other way of studying. Just think about that. We're talking about 1977 technology that we're able to communicate with, and I'm wondering where is all that power supply coming from to supply Voyager to communicate 43 years ago. Hey, it's most amazing technology when you look at it. Oh, by the way, Scotty, beam me up. Presenting Marty Winston, All Hands on Tech, with his review of Widgets and Thingamajigs.
Aside from the coverage that I do here, now you may not know this, I review more than 300 products every year. Some of them that have come through recently impressed me, and for some reason, hearing about interesting products can be fun. So I'm using my time today to talk about a few of these that, for one reason or another, I find noteworthy. One of those is EndoSnake. It's an HD video camera the size of a matchstick, including its built-in white LED lights surrounding its tiny lens at the end, and it connects to a USB cable. Out in the field, I can plug this into my Samsung Galaxy S8's USB-C port and shoot. Back in the office, I can plug it into my Windows PC USB-A port and shoot. and it can get me shots that my other cameras aren't tiny enough to manage. I can slide it beneath the keycaps of my mechanical keyboard to get video of what happens when a key gets pressed. I can slip this thing past an electrical cover plate to look inside the walls, which is really, really handy when you're fishing a wire down the wall and you aren't quite sure how far it got. That's the HD Video USB camera from Endosnake. I got an unusually designed hairdryer called Rev Air. That's the name. Rev Air, as in reversed air. And the airflow is the reverse of those hot blowers, those guns that everybody uses to abuse hair everywhere. Rev Air is built more like a vacuum cleaner, but with a specialized nozzle at the business end of the hose that incorporates a less severe heat chamber. You place the nozzle section by section on the root end of your hairs at the scalp. It draws the hair into the hose, and at the same time as the suction draws the wetness out of your hair, the heat chamber also helps dry it. Overall, this approach to drying isn't as stressful to the hair, at least I assume not, because it doesn't have that almost brittle feeling coming out. For people with long curly hair, the big surprise is that the hair comes out mostly straight. And overall, for any hair length of a few inches or longer, getting it dry gets done a lot faster. That's Rev Air. Most of you know I'm a champion for true automation in the home. Not so much a champion of having dozens of apps on a smartphone that each let you remote control a thing or two. Automation isn't about giving you more chores, it's about taking chores away. And one place where I try to be clever about automation is in the garage. I have a garage door opener, a LiftMaster, that puts a motion sensor on its wall-mounted little control button, so it automatically turns on the opener's lights whenever somebody's in the garage. I like that. It's a simple feature, but I like it. I spoke to LiftMaster this week, and they're sending me some of their MyQ automation pieces, including a camera. They're not here yet, but something else is. Tailwind has a garage door controller that I like a lot. A simple sensor set, in this case a magnet and a magnetic reed switch, know whether your garage door is open or shut. A small controller box has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connections, plus wired connections. Wires are a lot more foolproof than wireless, and there are no batteries to babysit. Now, both the sensor and the opener get wired. In my case, a small dongle that's paired to the rolling codes in my garage door opener is what gets wired in. The real smarts are in the app. Yes, you can use it as a remote control to let your phone open and close the garage door. That doesn't impress me. What does impress me is the way it uses Bluetooth and GPS and Wi-Fi. When your car leaves the garage, once it gets farther than the distance that I set for it, the system knows because of GPS in the phone. Once that car gets beyond that distance, if I haven't already closed the garage door, it can do that for me automatically. And the same is true when I'm headed back home. When I get within the range I set, it can open the garage door automatically. Now that's can, not will. I have to enable the feature. And second, using a home automation version of what IT computer security pros call two-factor authentication, my phone has to be seeing the Bluetooth from my car or it won't work. The whole auto-open, auto-close thing won't work. So nobody can steal just my phone and expect the garage to let them in, and nobody can steal just my car and expect that door to open. My phone and my car have to be Bluetooth connected to each other, or that cool piece of automation won't respond. Tailwind also lets me set schedules, so at bedtime, if the garage door isn't already shut, it will shut automatically. You can also set it to auto shut if it stays open too long, and it can all connect to Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, SmartThings, or IFTTT. That's Tailwind, and I see it as giving my garage door, well, an intelligent and conscientious doorman. Speaking of garage simplicity, Maxa, that's M-A-X-S-A, sent their Park Right dual laser garage parking assistant. It has an AC adapter. You could also just use 3 AAA cells. It has a motion detector and 2 laser pointers in ball and socket mounts. You mount it up high. It has to be far enough back in the garage so the lasers can clear the garage door when that's open. And you point the 2 beams so they land at a desired reference point on the car when your car pulls into its exactly right position. 2 beams because there are 2 garage spaces in my garage. I like to use the line at the back of the hood, right next to the windshield wiper well. Now, this gizmo is only on when it sees motion. That's the Park Right dual laser garage parking assistant from Maxa Innovations. Does somebody in your bedroom snore? I got in 3 very different answers to that from Z Quiet, the letter Z and the word quiet, Z Quiet. In my bedroom, I'm the one who snores, or did. The Z Quiet mouthpiece is a lot like those rubber mouth protectors that athletes use, only it forces your lower teeth slightly forward, which forces your jaw forward. That changes the shape of the airway in your mouth enough to stop snoring from happening, as reported by my long-suffering better half. That's the first of 3 products. Z Quiet Breathe is a squiggly rubber frame that I insert into both nostrils at once, and it opens that passage just enough to cut the almost whistling sound of breathing through tight nostrils. At the same time, it allows more air to pass, so there's less likelihood of loud mouth breathing. And hey, I'm probably getting a little more oxygen and sleeping a bit better. Those 2 items, Z Quiet Mouthpiece and Z Quiet Breathe, are for the person doing the snoring. They also have Z Quiet snore-canceling earbuds. These are small earbuds with the same kind of foam tips as hearing protectors like you might wear to rock concerts or a shooting range. There's a microphone built in to pick up ambient sound, but there's also a filter that blocks the low-frequency band where snoring happens. The sleeper can hear everything else. You still snore, they just can't hear it. All these are from Z Quiet. Roku has been around for a fairly long time now, but their first Roku box was the last one I tested, so I had them send me their top-of-the-line Roku Ultra, and I'm really impressed. Its tiny remote can accept spoken commands and has a jack for the JBL earbuds that come with it, so you can listen without bothering anybody. The box itself supports full 4K if your TV's HDMI input and your HDMI cable both do. The channel lineup is amazing. I was even able to add my cable system as an app. I've tried many ways to bring in streaming TV and video, and so far, there's nothing I like better than Roku Ultra. Speaking of streaming, and please understand, sometimes I get to try things or know about things a little bit ahead of them being available. So far, the thing I found that's my best guide to the streams is something that metaphorically lives in streams. It's a Minnow. Minnow TV, M-I-N-N-O-W TV, is a guide to a broad catalog of streaming sources, hundreds so far and soon thousands. The search is very cool. If you want to search for the Oscar winners for 1943, it'll find them for you, show them to you, and let you click to get to where they are. You do need to log in, but get this. They're offering Pioneer subscriptions. If you subscribe by August 31st, your subscription is free for life. All they ask is your name and email address, and you pick a password. They're not selling data or doing creepy stuff. It's just so when you tell them your preferences, they'll have a way to store those for you. With a gazillion streaming choices out there, it's very cool to have a way to get at what you want without getting overwhelmed. I told them to just say that you can win OTV with Minnow TV. MinnowTV.com to sign up for yourself. I also got an Antop Big Boy TV antenna, very useful if you want to watch TV over the air. It's roughly a foot wide and 2 feet tall, sculpted plastic. It has 2 horizontal rods you can screw in to help with the lower band VHF channel reception. It has a very effective signal amplifier that includes 5G interference rejection. I set it up in a basement, about 25 miles outside Cleveland, and faced it exactly the wrong way, and I still picked up 42 channels. Over the air, OTA is free TV. And you should know that there's a new standard for TV broadcasts. Officially, it's ATSC3, but the hypesters are calling it Next Gen TV. It's approved, and it's a way that will, sooner or later, bring you TV in 4K over the air, and more or better multicast, those piggyback channels, multicast channels. Every TV antenna ever built is compatible with that. You don't need to buy a new one, but if you want a new one, the Antop Big Boy is a heck of a good performer. There are some other cool things coming. Not here yet, but I'm eager to try them. The WeatherFlow Tempest Weather Station, fully solar-powered with advanced sensors and active AI constantly tweaking its results. The at-home Homey Bridge that makes all those warring protocols in home automation intercompatible at last. LifeDoor, a device that attaches to a room's door near the hinge and automatically shuts the door if it hears a smoke alarm go off. I love tech, but I love my wife more, so let me set an example for you by telling you we're going out on Valentine's Day to hear the Cleveland Orchestra play. Then comes the long 3-day weekend for President's Day, which might have been 3 days of stress if Valentine's Day didn't include at least a little something special. A word to the wise. Next time, well, I'm hoping the long weekend at last gives me time to do the piece on cleverly different LED fixtures. Light 'em if you got 'em.
Thank you, Marty. Public service announcements. Computer club meetings in the New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut tri-state region. The computer clubs have random access sessions at each of these club meetings. If you have any questions or need for technical advice, the club members are more than happy to assist. There is no such thing as a dumb question. All these computer club meetings are open free to the public. The New York Amateur Computer Club has a presentation on Anyone Can Use WordPress to Build a Website. Thursday, February the 13th, meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at NYU, 32 Waverly Place, Silver Building. Check with the front desk for the room number. Meeting is at Manhattan, New York. Princeton PC Users Group meets Tuesday, February the 25th. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and it's at the Mercer County Library in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Brookdale Computer Users Group, why switch your old PC running Windows 7 to Linux? Thursday, February the 27th. Meeting time is 6:45 p.m., and they meet at the Middletown Library Large Meeting Room, 55 New Monmouth Road in Middletown, New Jersey. Amateur Computer Group of New Jersey meets Friday, March the 6th. Meeting time is 8 p.m., and they meet at the Scotch Plains Rescue Squad in Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Westchester PC Users Group has a presentation on hidden gems Thursday, March the 5th. Meeting time is 7 p.m., and they meet at the Keller Williams New York Realty, 120 Bloomingdale Road in White Plains, New York. The 45th Trenton Computer Festival, Saturday, March the 21st. The College of New Jersey, Ewing, New Jersey. The original Personal Computer Festival is from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The keynote speaker will be Jerry Foster, CTO and co-founder of Plex Systems. The topic of presentation is How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Artificial Intelligence. It's an overview of artificial intelligence from its humble beginnings to disruptive force with an eye towards a significant positive impact on our world. And there are other feature tech talks and workshops, which includes do-it-yourself home automation, tricks and tips for Windows 10, quantum computing, WordPress bootcamp, new Internet of Things using 5G, stock market trading using neural networks, hands-on Arduino workshop for beginners, all-day robotics pavilion, and many more. For more information, tcf-nj.org. That's the 45th Trenton Computer Festival, Saturday, March the 21st of this year. Our website is pcradioshow.org. We can be heard each Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on prn.fm, streaming on the Internet. Podcasts of the program is available on prn.fm, on the Internet, and pcradioshow.org. If you have any questions for us, just send us an email addressed to hank@pcradioshow.org. There is no such thing as a stupid question. In the meantime, stay in touch and remember to do regular backups. I'm Hank Key, and on behalf of Joe King, Michael Horowitz, Marty Winston, Benjamin Rockwell, and Mark Leoso, we thank you for listening. Stay safe and healthy until we meet again, same time, same station next week.